Chapter 1 A.D. 24 Reggio. Who is my father? Claudia was sitting with her grandmother on a stone bench in the garden reviewing her Latin. It wasn't the first time she had asked, but so far she had never received a satisfactory answer. Scribonia sighed heavily. You need to ask your mother that question. I have, and she won't answer. Her mother, Julia, ordered her out of the room whenever she persisted. Her grandmother rose, her mouth prim with impatience. I have things to attend to. Practice your words on your tablet. Without a backward look, she hurried away. Claudia frowned and put the wax tablet down on the bench. Why won't they tell me who he is? She knew it was not Tiberius, her mother's third husband. He had divorced her long before Claudia was born. She would find out somehow, she resolved, and reluctantly returned to her Latin. With the question lingering in the back of her mind, it took little to distract her from her studies. A butterfly settled delicately on a leaf and fanned its wings, but the beautiful creature suddenly flew off into the blue sky before she could capture it. A small lizard caught her eye, and she watched the creature's quick spurts of movement until it disappeared over the wall. The pear that Medina, their Syrian slave, had given her looked delicious, so she took a bite and savored its sweetness. The garden in the center of their villa, which had been a refuge for her as a small child, now seemed confining as she grew older. Now, on her 12th birthday, she longed to see something of the outside world. The faint sounds of the city could barely be heard, muffled by the thick walls of the villa. It was more a prison than a home, for only their two slaves were allowed out to go to the market for food. Why are we not allowed to leave the villa? She knew from her grandmother that the town was called Reggio, and it was far from Rome. Her grandmother told her their living situation had been ordered by the emperor, Caesar Augustus, Claudia's grandfather. A shadowy figure she'd never met, but, from her grandmother's description, feared. Our lives depend on his favor, grandmother had divulged to her one day. As the years ticked by, her mother and grandmother grew more apprehensive when speaking of him. Julia's soft laughter came from the atrium. The latest soldier was leaving. Claudia was old enough to know why they came. Julia ignored her mother's admonishments, but when they argued, Claudia, who had learned to move quietly and listen unobtrusively from the shadows of the latticed pergola, learned many things. Augustus has eyes and ears everywhere, Julia. Sooner or later there will be a reckoning. The soldiers put their careers, and perhaps even their lives, in jeopardy. Do you not care, daughter, about the consequences? What of your daughter? Julia sighed impatiently and waved a languid hand. They are probably transferred to another post. Don't be so gloomy, mater. Scribonia shook her head and walked away. It didn't seem to matter how often or strongly her grandmother voiced her opinion. Claudia's mother brushed it off and did as she pleased. Hearing voices, Claudia rose from the bench and slowly approached the atrium, her soft footsteps making no sound on the tile floor. They were arguing again. Julia, you are forbidden their company. Do you wish to be sent back to the island, or worse? I should be allowed a little entertainment, mater, seeing as we must spend day after boring day within this accursed villa. He could take his wrath out on the child. Only the gods know why he did not order her exposed to the elements when she was born. Obviously, she is not the child of Tiberius. I'm asking again, whose is she? Claudia held her breath and stood in the shadows, watching them. Perhaps someone resourceful who bribed the soldiers guarding me. Sempronius Gracchus? He got himself exiled to the African coast for his efforts. Julia shrugged, and Scribonia pressed her case. If you hadn't treated Tiberius the way you did, you wouldn't be here now.